Hi, Alliance members. This is Newell Auguer coming to you with this week's report from Augusta for the week ending April 20th. If I look like a guy who hasn't shaved in a couple days and didn't get a good night's sleep last night, it's because I haven't shaved in a couple days and I didn't get a good night's sleep last night. The House wrapped up their business at about 1:30, quarter of 2. And really, it didn't end all that cleanly or nicely. There was a lot of bad behavior on both sides, quite frankly. And we, unfortunately, I think I told you, given you the analogy about the train leaving the station, and if it does leave, we're on it. But unfortunately, no trains left the station, and there were no fiscal appropriations made. And so, at least as of now, we have no funding or no increase in the home-based care reimbursement rate to match the increase from the prior year. So we'd be in the hole about $3.9 million stateside plus the federal appropriation. And unfortunately, the way it all came out kind of paralleled a lot of the issues that we've been talking about for the last 3 months. Medicaid expansion, tax conformity, and a slowdown of the minimum wage. My understanding is from sources on both sides that they're not that far apart on tax conformity, that they actually are pretty close. But what really tripped it up was the Medicaid expansion and the minimum wage slowdown. So the Republicans have been saying all along Medicaid expansion is not on the table. Democrats have been saying all along minimum wage slowdown is not on the table. My understanding is at some point late on Wednesday or late Tuesday, early Wednesday, the Republicans actually put Medicaid expansion on the table and said that they would support the funding of the 100 or so positions that would be necessary to process all of the new enrollees who would be coming on. But that they would only do that in exchange for a slowdown in the minimum wage from $1 over the next 2 years to 50 cents over the next 4. The Democrats, to my understanding, have still said that they're not going to cross that line. And when that happened, the whole deal, I think, fell apart. The Republicans fell back to basically 4 bills that they would support. And at a couple points yesterday, I thought that we might get our money. The 4 bills were ours, 643, a bill to increase reimbursement rates for treatment for adults with disabilities, for caregivers of those folks, a bill to help shore up the county jails, and an education bill. But the Democrats would not support any of those 4 bills, not because they're against them, but because they want a broader budget package, and that's the way they felt that it should be done, and that we needed to have more time to do that. So then it became a procedural fight. And my experience is when people fight over substantive policy, the fights are pretty good. It's not personal, and they're meaningful discussions. When we have fights over procedure, it gets nasty and personal and ugly, and our democracy did not look good, regardless of what side you support last night. The Senate both parties supported extending the legislative session 5 days, but the House Republicans did not support that. They felt that enough time had been given, and they didn't feel that the extension was necessary, and they needed to support it in the House because it needs a 2/3 vote of both houses to go those extra 5 days. As a backstop to that, what they tried to do was to carry over all the bills to a special session. The trick with that is that there is no special session set, and in fact, the only way a special session would happen is if a majority of all 4 parties agree, or if the governor calls everyone back in, perhaps to do tax conformity, but nothing else. So that left us with an hour or 2-hour debate in the House, which got pretty ugly. Lots of challenges to everyone's ethical firmament, and as I say, it really wasn't pretty. But where that leaves us is we are still trying to find a way or hope for a way for the legislature to meet at some point to approve that $3.9 million of state funding, so that those increases that we received last year will continue to hold. Couple other points of note. The Democrats presented a package at the Appropriations Committee meeting at about 1:30 yesterday, in between when the legislature was meeting, and that package did not include our bill 842, which was going to increase reimbursement rates for Section 40 by about 70%, or to 70% of the Medicare rate. And my understanding is that it's not in the Republicans' package either. So we probably got some more work to do on that front. There have been some meetings that have been going on that have been productive with the folks from Burns and with our financial folks, so hopefully that will continue. It's not going to happen very quickly, but then again, if the legislature doesn't come back in until May or even June after the primary, maybe there may be some movement on that, given what the fruits of the discussions that we're having with Burns. So other than that, the legislature, will likely come back in the week of April the 30th for veto day. They do have statutory authority to come back in for that day to deal with anything the governor has vetoed. He probably is going to veto the adult recreation marijuana bill, and so there'll be a final chapter written for that. But whether or not our bill and any other bills, including tax conformity, are taken up, that will probably have to wait until a special session or some other agreement to extend the legislative session. In the meantime, if you can't be excited about your legislature, then get behind the Bruins or get behind the Celtics, and I will provide some information to you next Friday. One of the things we are going to try to do is reach out to the governor's office in the hope that perhaps they may be able to put together some fiscal orders to try to close that gap, at least for the first part of the next fiscal year. We'll have to figure out some creative ways with the governor's office to do that, since it's pretty obvious to everyone that everyone supports this, but we're going to need at some point an appropriation to make it happen. So we're going to keep working, and we'll talk to you next week.